You're listening to Drinks and a Movie with your host, Rudy. Spoiler alert.
Here we go, Drinks and a Movie podcast. Thanks for joining. Today I have a very special guest. You know him from Boulevard Nights, American Me. This is Big Puppet, Danny De La Paz. Thanks for joining me, man.
You're very welcome. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. Our drink of the day is Arrowhead Mountain Spring Water, a local favorite. So we're just out here getting hydrated. Yeah, man. So again, thanks for joining. I just wanted to, talk about your history in movies with Boulevard Nights, American Me specifically. We already did an episode on American Me, but it'd be great to get some of your insight on that, as well as Boulevard Nights, and just to hopefully, share these movies with more people that may not have seen them. So first off, I just wanted to ask, how did the gig for Boulevard Nights come about for you? I know you started acting when you were in high school, right?
Yeah, high school is where my love for acting developed from my freshman year all the way through my senior year. And, excuse me, actually before I graduated, I got my first professional job where I was going to get paid to be in a musical review that would perform 2 times a day at Knott's Berry Farm in their Good Time Theater. So it was like a half-hour show, singing and dancing and acting, little sketches, kind of.
Yeah.
And, of course, I was the only person of color in the cast. This is the summer of 1975. And it was money. I was going to get paid money. So I'm a senior in high school. I haven't even graduated yet. Everybody else in the cast is in their 20s and 30s. And so in order to start rehearsing the play, I had to leave school in the spring and take night classes so that I could graduate. So that's pretty much how my professional life began, on the stage at Knott's Berry Farm, of all places. And then that led to me graduating from high school that summer of 75 and continuing to pursue more work in the theater, because that's what I knew was the theater. At the time, I did not have any representation. I didn't know how to get an agent, or I didn't know anything about the film industry at all. So I got another job. It didn't pay as much, but at least it still paid, in another musical, and this was in downtown L.A. And I was doing musicals and, getting all kinds of experience that way. And this particular children's musical that I was in, one day, one of the cast members from the Jeffersons came for some reason. I guess he had a friend in the cast. He was playing Lionel on the Jeffersons, the second Lionel, not the first one, because people that know the Jeffersons know that after season 1 or season 2, I forget which, maybe season 3, they replaced the original Lionel with a new one, and that new one's name was Damon Evans. And Damon came to see this play that I was in. I guess he had a friend in the cast, and so he came to see the play. And afterwards, he didn't even stay. He left a note when the play was over for someone to give to me. Just a little note written on a little yellow card. I remember it was bright yellow. And he said, "My name is Devin Evans, and I work for Norman Lear, who was the producer of The Jeffersons and of All in the Family and all these great television shows. I think you should call this guy. He's an agent." And he gave me the number. "Tell him that I told you to call." So I never got to meet Damon. I got the note, and I called the number, and it was an agent. And we arranged for me to come in to his office and meet him. I was 19 years old at the time. And I came in, and he took one look at me from head to toe, and on Damon's recommendation, he agreed to represent me. At the time, these agents were looking for a lot of young people because that was the thing. Young people were being cast left and right in films and television projects. And, so that was what he was thinking he could market, was the fact that I was young. And
right.
I was a person of color, and that was kind of the in thing at the time in the mid-'70s. People of color getting more work or whatever.
Yeah.
So suddenly I had an agent, and the next thing I know, he calls me up, and we began the process of our relationship, working together. And he sends me out on an audition for a part on a television series. It's a new television series. Actually, it was one of the first, if not the first, Latino television show on TV, and it starred a guy named Hector Elizondo, who is a very accomplished actor.
Yeah.
He's been around for many, many years.
Yeah.
I later worked with him in a film, actually. But this is a television series called Poppy, P-O-P-I, which is a Puerto Rican term for, and other people use it as well, for father. And it was based on a movie that starred Alan Arkin that was made sometime in the 70s as well, early 70s. So I auditioned for this part of this kid, like a guest starring role on one segment of this series, my very first audition, and lo and behold, they gave me the part. So I got the part. I was scared to death. I couldn't believe how, I was like, wow, I got this part. I'm going to be on television. It just freaked me out. I didn't know anything about cameras. That first day on the set, I was a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I was a wreck. I had to keep it to myself, but I was like, oh my God, I'm on the set at MGM Studios, and there's all these people and cameras and lights, and I didn't know anything about, how do you act in front of that machine,
Yeah.
So that was my trial by fire, was that that part. And then the day that that was in January of 1976 when we shot that, and it aired in late February of that same year. And I'll never forget the day it was broadcast. My family and I are all sitting in the front room of our house in front of the television, waiting for my television debut.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the middle of one of my scenes, an announcer breaks through and interrupts the program to make some kind of an announcement about, I forget what it was, but it was something of major concern, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And just right there. And then, of course, they came back and, resumed the program. But yeah, that was my auspicious television debut. But that's how I got an agent.
Yeah.
And then after that audition, he started sending me out on more auditions, and I didn't get anything for like a year and a half. 1977, I think I maybe got one little part as an extra on Maude.
Okay.
The casting director called me up and asked me if I'd be an extra. And I thought, okay, I'll do it, just to have the experience.
Right.
That was my only experience, though, I think. And then in 1978, okay, they were casting for this movie called King Cobra. And by this time, I had already had to get a job to support myself, right? And my father was a carpenter, so I felt comfortable around lumber yards. So I got a job at a lumber yard. And I was at work, and my agent called me at work, and he said, I have this interview for you for this movie about Chicano gangs. This is a Jewish guy, okay?
Okay.
He doesn't know anything about Chicano gangs.
Yeah, yeah.
Chicano, I think he said Chicano. Chicano gangs. It was called King Cobra.
Okay.
So he said, go meet these people at such a time, whatever. So I made arrangements to go do that. And that was my very first audition for this movie called King Cobra, which eventually came to be called Boulevard Nights. And the casting director was a lovely woman named Vivian McCrae. God bless her wherever she is. I don't even know if she's still alive. And Vivian, now mind you, she sees this guy. She's looking for a young gang member to play the lead role, right? Mm-hmm. A young cholo. And she sees this kid with an afro. Okay, I had an afro at the time. Skinny kid with an afro. And I don't look like what the character should look like. Mm-hmm. But there's something about me that she really likes, that she thinks will work in this role. And she brings me back for a callback. And she brings me back from that. I think I started auditioning in April of 1978. And I kept getting called back in through May, June, and finally in July when they had a screen test, which was videotaped.
Right.
I wish I had that videotape. God knows what happened to that.
Yeah.
But, and I screen tested with the guy who played Manolo in Scarface with Al Pacino. Mm-hmm. I screen tested with him. His name at the time was Rocky Echeverria, but he changed his name when he did Scarface. He played, Al Pacino's best friend.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was playing my older brother.
Okay.
In the videotaped, screen test. And then eventually they gave me a call one day on the phone in July and said, hey, or late June, you've got the part. And that's how it all started, really. working on that film, it was a life-changing event. You don't know these things when they come upon you.
Yeah, yeah.
But in time, you come to realize, looking back, that, it changed my life.
Right, right. Yeah, that sets you on a new course for sure, right?
Well, let's put it this way. The night before that movie opened was a Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
It was due to open on Friday, March the 23rd, 1979. So Thursday, March 22nd, 1979, I went to bed, and the life that I had led up to that point of being an anonymous person, this young guy, I had friends, I had lots of friends,
Mm-hmm.
And my family. That life that I had led up to that point ended the morning I woke up, Friday, March 23rd of 1979. At 12 noon, when the first screening of that movie hit the movie screens across the country, my life was never, ever, ever going to be the same. That's pretty much in a nutshell what happens overnight.
Yeah.
Whether you're ready or not, whether you're prepared or not, nobody prepares you for this stuff.
Right,
Nobody
right.
tells you how to deal with this.
Yeah.
Fame and people's attention on you. And yeah, it was quite an experience, to say the least.
And then so at that point, you're 20, 21, something
At that
like
point, I'm 21, just about to turn 22.
Okay.
In 2 weeks, I'd be turning 22.
And where did you so you started with the theater stuff at Knott's. Did you grow up near Buena Park?
I grew up in Whittier, city of Whittier, not far from Buena Park.
Yeah.
Not far from Hollywood, right between Hollywood and Orange County.
Right, yeah.
So, Hollywood was like my backyard. So if you were going to be a young guy that wanted to become an actor, living in Whittier was perfect.
Yeah.
Because, it wasn't like I had to come from Iowa or New York or whatever. I mean, not New York, but it wasn't like I was in Montana or Idaho or someplace far from the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
It was literally a half an hour, 35 minutes away.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
So I would go there as a teenager and visit friends, and I would, visit Los Angeles and get to know it.
Yeah.
As a teenager. And then when I started to be in the entertainment industry as a young adult, well, it was already someplace that was very familiar to me.
And as far as the the character of Chuco goes, so you, from what I understand in other interviews I've heard and seen, you didn't grow up with that lifestyle at all, did you? So that was a completely new territory for you to.
It was completely
take on
new
that
territory.
Character.
I grew up in Whittier and uptown Whittier.
Yeah.
And Whittier, how can I describe it? It used to be a Quaker town.
Mm-hmm.
It has very expensive homes in one area called Friendly Hills, and also in the area around Whittier College in uptown Whittier. Very expensive neighborhoods. Kind of a middle class mixture of Anglos and Mexican Americans. I grew up around other Mexican Americans. My parents both spoke Spanish, but I didn't. But I don't know if you've ever seen that show called The Wonder Years.
Yeah,
it was a television series from the 80s, and they show it on TV Land and all that.
Yeah.
It's a very popular show. The little boy in that show is named Kevin Arnold. And just, he grew up in the 60s, which is when I grew up. That show kind of encapsulates what my childhood was like as far as my environment and growing up.
Okay.
My Schwinn bicycle, I wasn't around gangs. I never saw cholos, no lowriders, nobody working on their car in their yard, no little kids in the front lawn in their diapers.
Yeah.
You just never saw stuff like that.
Right.
When I grew up in Whittier. So yeah, it was a foreign world to me. I think the first cholo I ever saw was in high school. There was one. We had one cholo. And I remember being in Spanish class, and he walked in the door wearing a pair of creased down khakis and a white creased shirt.
Yeah.
And he just stood out. So I remember looking at him like, wow, he looks pretty cool,
Yeah.
Different. He wasn't wearing cords and a T-shirt.
Right.
Looking like something the cat drug in like the rest of us,
Yeah.
With our hair all uncombed or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely something where I was going to have to do some work.
Yeah.
To understand who this person was, the way he thought, the way he dressed, the way he lived his life what his environment was that he was raised in, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, why it was that he did the things he did and said the things he said.
Yeah.
And that environment played such a huge part of that. So luckily, the filmmakers hired real homeboys from a few different barrios that they got to help me so that I could understand what their reality was like
Right.
and make my portrayal more believable, more truthful.
Were any of these guys cast in the movie?
They were
as,
cast
like,
as
gang?
the,
So
as the
they're
members
actually-
of the VGV.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they're all actually in there. You're with them.
They're
all the
in there.
time.
I'm with them. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they took the first thing they did was tape me to get my afro cut.
Right. Right.
They took me to their barber, and the barber cut my hair, and then I had to go back to the hairstylist, and she dyed it. They dyed my hair after they cut it black because my hair was brown,
Okay.
dark brown, and they wanted me to have pitch black, dark, like your hair is dark
Yeah.
hair. Like a lot of homeboys had that jet black hair, but I didn't
Yeah.
have that, so they dyed it. And then when the dye started to wear off, they would spray it every day. But the chemicals that were in that spray would seep into my pores, and they would cause me to break out.
Oh, damn.
So in a couple of scenes in the film, you can see where I obviously have some acne issues.
Right. Right.
But between the makeup and the hair dye and the hairspray, it's amazing I didn't die of toxic poisoning
Yeah,
before
yeah.
we finished shooting.
Yeah, that's a lot. What was that shooting schedule like for that movie? How long did that
It was a
take?
10-week schedule that
10
began in July, a little bit after the 4th of July, and ended in October, just prior to Halloween.
Do you have like contact with any of those cast members still? Or are you,
Yes,
like, good
one of
friend,
the
like-
one of the young homeboys that was in the film with me in the VGV. Him and I are still friends to this day.
Yeah.
And
that's
you know,
cool.
of course, he got out of that gang life, and he has a beautiful lowrider, and his daughter put his daughter through college, and
Nice.
you know, he's a great guy, beautiful person.
Yeah.
And I've always been so grateful to him and to all the others too. Some of them aren't with us anymore, but for what they gave to me, you know, for what they helped me bring to the screen, because honestly, without them, there's no way I could have ever done it.
Right. Right.
And you know, Chuco wasn't a hardcore, hard-ass cholo.
Yeah.
The way I played him and the way that I saw him was more of a wannabe.
Right.
He wanted very much to be noticed.
Yeah.
He wanted the attention that maybe he wasn't getting at home. He didn't have a father,
Yeah.
and his brother was his father figure. But of late, his brother was preoccupied with moving on in his life, with his girl, getting married,
yeah.
starting a business,
Right.
starting, raising a family, having kids. So Chuco was kind of fell down the priority list
Yeah.
on his brother's priority list. And I think that helped him or spurred him on to want to find that sense of identity, that sense of belonging
Yeah.
in the gang.
Yeah. I think, and that to me, that's definitely the big thing that resonates, like with that character is how. Like you said, it's like he's kind of caught in the middle, kind of a misfit, wants to be noticed. And there's even this like not hardcore. Like there's a moment where, you know, he takes in the cat, and there's like
Yes.
another moment with I think like the birds. Like there's always
Yeah,
like
you see
animals.
him with
like,
animals,
There's a lot
yes.
of care there, and even like in their shootout at the end when he fires off the shotgun, and I think he hits one of the guys, and then just in the expression, it's like.
Yes.
He feels something for like, fuck, I just like hurt this other human being.
You know,
Like,
you're the only
there's
person
a lot of care there.
that I can think of recently that's even noticed that moment, because that's exactly what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
I was trying to show people this is the first time he's ever shot anybody.
Yeah, and it's impacting him
And
in
it
a
wasn't
big way.
a glorious feeling.
Yeah,
To know that he's going to live with that for the rest of his life. He could have taken that person's life. He did take that person's life.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of sensitivity and vulnerability that I brought to that portrayal of that character. That is the reason I think why Vivian McRae, the casting director, wanted so much for me to play that part. Because she thought that that's what was the key to that role.
Yeah.
Not a hard-ass person was tough and big muscled and all that. That's not what she was looking for.
Yeah.
And the director agreed. The director was actually a man whose father was also involved in the theater. And the director loved the theater and loved acting. And his name is Michael Pressman, and I think him and I got along very well. You know, he was a white director, and the screenplay was written by a Japanese American, and it was starring Mexican Americans. So we had a little bit of the United Nations thing going on.
Yeah, yeah. And that same writer, they also, I mean, I just learned this recently, they were also a writer on American Me.
Yeah, Desmond
well.
Nakano, yes.
Yeah.
He also worked on American Me as well. Yes, that's right.
Wow, yeah. I literally just learned that this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I came across another interview with you where you mentioned that American Me was actually in works as far as like a writing stage or like an idea at the time you guys were doing this movie.
American
Me
Me was already a script.
Okay, wow, yeah, I had no idea.
There was already a first or second draft of it or whatever you want to call it, floating around, and it was already being talked about by many actors as a future production, something that we might be working on sometime in the future. And this is 1978, so the script had been around already for 5 years.
Damn, wow.
Yeah, Floyd Mutrux had written the script. I don't know what draft it was on at that point.
Yeah.
But Floyd had met Edward James Olmos early on when Eddie had a small part in a film that Floyd was working on called Aloha, Bobby and Rose. So I remember one time being on the set of Boulevard Nights, myself and Richard and Marta, the girl that played Shady.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, lovely woman. And we were all sitting in the car while they were setting up lights, waiting for them to get ready to shoot the next scene. And we were having a conversation about the future, all the different projects that we knew about, scripts that were floating around that involved Latinos, that was, involved work for Latino actors.
Yeah.
And one of them was American Me. That was one of the projects we were talking about. Boy, I would love to have a tape recording of that conversation.
Right, yeah.
How amazing would that be to listen to that?
Yeah.
I remember it, but just actually hear it.
Yeah.
Here we are talking about something that's going to impact my life so much just, 13 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. I mean, yeah, I had no idea that it was going on that early.
Yeah, most people don't. They just, it took them 18 years.
Yeah.
It took him having to become a star first. Miami Vice gave him the...
So Edward James Olmos was attached even at that time. Like that was okay,
him and
gotcha.
Floyd, yeah.
All right.
But it took Edward James Olmos that long before he had the wherewithal to make that movie.
Were you already on the table from the Boulevard Nights days, like by the time it came into casting that one?
Well, Boulevard Nights was made in the summer when Zoot Suit was playing at the Mart Taper Forum. Now, prior to being cast in Boulevard Nights, that particular year, my girlfriend and I had season tickets to the Mart Taper Forum in the Music Center in downtown L.A. And one of the shows was Zoot Suit. So I had already had the tickets before I started filming the Boulevard Nights. So on the day of the performance that we were scheduled to go see, Zoot Suit, right? I was filming Boulevard Nights, and I was looking at the clock thinking, oh my God, we're going to get out of here late. I'm going to miss the show. And I told him I needed to get out a little bit early because I didn't want to miss it. I was excited to see it. So lo and behold, they let me go. We finished shooting, or at least I did. And I couldn't even change out of my makeup, I was dressed like a cholo, my baggy pants and my Pendleton and my makeup on. And just like that, I went straight from East LA to downtown, met my girlfriend at the theater, and we went to go see Zoot Suit. And I already had met Edward James Olmos a year prior in 1977 because I had a good friend that I went to high school with, and he moved out of Whittier, moved to Huntington Beach, and eventually he moved to Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, he got this girlfriend, and she was an actress, and she was doing this play called Perfume. And in this play was a fellow actor named Edward James Olmos. And this is in 1977. So going to see her in the play, afterwards I got to meet him.
Nice.
So that's when I first met him. So now fast forward to the next summer, and to go seeing Zoot Suit at the Mar Taper. And there I am in my, cholo outfit, right? So they probably just thought I was a cholo from East LA because a lot of people from East LA were going to see it.
Okay, yeah.
Many people were going to the theater for the first time ever because of this play.
Yeah.
It was bringing in a whole new audience to the Taper. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, here I am trying to play a real Chicano homeboy.
Yeah.
And here are these homeboys on the stage, right? These actors playing these homeboys from the 40s.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of them not as actors. I'm thinking, wow, I don't think I could ever be as real as these guys that are on the stage. They were so Chicano with a capital C.
Yeah.
I couldn't even, it just blew me away. But it impressed me how much, later on I got to know many of these actors. And yeah, they were Chicano, but they had to work at it too.
Yeah.
Just like I did. Mm-hmm. But I was so impressed with the quality of their work and with that play and with their performances. So, that summer of 1978 was really exciting. The making of the film and seeing Zoot Suit. And, Zoot Suit was playing while we were filming. And La Parrilla restaurant in Boyle Heights was opening that same summer. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
In East LA, in the Chicanismo and the Chicano community that particular summer. Mm-hmm. It was nice to be a part of that.
When Boulevard Nights came out, I'm curious, how was it received at that time? Did it get a lot of positive or mixed or a negative review from the community or even on a wider, audience?
I think at that time, the community was just sick and tired of every time there was a television show about them that featured, Chicano or Latino, whatever you want to call them, characters.
Yeah.
It was always gang related.
Right.
So now here comes this movie, which they haven't seen yet, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, now it's going to be on the big screen. Warner Brothers, Chicanos, gang. They didn't even see the movie. They didn't want to know anything about the movie. They just hit the theaters with their placards and protested. And without even seeing the film, they just decided already they hated it before they even saw it. So it was just met with so much negativity from the Chicano community. You would not believe it. It is not the little beloved film that it is today.
Yeah.
Now, the audiences, that's different. The audiences ignored the protesters and went in to see the film anyway. Yeah. And they loved it. They thought it was respectful. Mm-hmm. They thought that it was realistic. Yeah. That they identified with it. Right. And they felt an amazing sense of pride in seeing themselves and their lifestyle, many of them, portrayed up on the screen. Right. And the one good review that we got in the paper was in the LA Times. And it was by Charles Champlin, who was the main reviewer for the Los Angeles Times, film reviewer. And he thought it was honest and effective and a good little film. He really appreciated it he thought it was trying to be as honest as it could be, and it wasn't exploitive. Yeah. And that was a wonderful review that he gave the film. It was so exciting. He compared my performance to an actor from the 40s and 50s named John Garfield, who was somebody I grew up watching on television. His old movies would play on television when I was a kid in the 60s. And I always liked John Garfield, but I was shocked to see that he compared me with him. Yeah. And he also compared me with the actor from The Deer Hunter. God, I can't think of his name now, but he was an actor that played Fredo in The Godfather Part 2. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, John I know it's a C. Cusack or Cazal. Kazari. Yeah. I'll look it up. John Kazari. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name. Forgive me, because he's a fine actor. This guy did 5 films that were all nominated for Academy Awards, and his performance in each one of them is a work of freaking art. Yeah. Cazale, John Cazale, that's his name. Cazale, John Cazale. Yep. Anyway, he compared me with John Cazale and John Garfield. These are 2 actors from different generations, and it was just an honor to be compared to those 2 guys. It was like, It was unbelievable. It was, but anyway, getting back to your question, the Chicano community is just shat all over that film. Is that a word? Because I'm going to use it if it's not.
Yeah.
They shat on it. They really did.
Did you, I mean, when you took on the role, did you have any concerns with that? Or, I mean, I imagine at that point in your life, you're probably happy to have the gig, but did it ever cross your mind to like, oh man, I have to kind of depict,
because at that time I wasn't very much aware of of the Chicano community and how they were feeling so tired of being portrayed in this particular way.
Yeah.
I didn't have an awareness of that.
Yeah.
Boulevard Nights was a way for me to get in touch with what it was to be a Chicano. I knew I was Chicano. I didn't mind identifying with that term.
Yeah.
My mother thought that was a dirty word. She
Really?
came from that generation that she didn't.
Yeah.
That word, just don't use that word. But
Yeah. Because that was a negative way to like.
For her, it had negative
yeah.
connotations, but not for me. Not for me. And the Boulevard Nights was like my Chicano baptism. That's how I look at it. I got dipped in the waters of Chicanismo.
Yeah.
Through that film. So it was a great experience for me to get in touch with my culture, basically.
Yeah, man. Like, you talked about how your life changed through that movie, and it's amazing to see that's not just from a career side of things, but just
both.
As you're like internally is
putting me in touch
with
who I was, with a sense of identity. That's not
amazing.
all that I am, but it's a big part of who I am.
Yeah, for sure.
Feeling this is and accepting it, that this is who I am. But anyway, the Chicano community was just burned out.
Mm-hmm.
But audiences lined up to see the film, and they loved it. I sat in many times in the back without people knowing I was there.
Yeah.
To see their reaction. The first time you see yourself on screen, it's such a shock.
Right.
God, do I walk that way? And does my jaw really look like that when I lie down? And
yeah.
There was times when I thought the audience laughed when I never had any intention. I wasn't trying to be funny.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they did laugh. I'm glad that they found humor in the things that were in Boulevard Nights. So it wasn't just a negative experience. It wasn't just a downer,
Yeah.
Because it is a very serious film.
Yeah.
And a sad film.
The like wedding reception dance in the house with the mother always gets me. Like, it's so fucking rough, man.
Yeah.
And again, just like portrayed and acted out so beautifully, like, coming back home, getting out of your shell, like, all right, let me try to enjoy this moment, forget everything, family's taking me back, and then you get hit with the tragedy, and it's like,
being there, seeing your mother murdered in your arms, literally, was it's unbelievable. He was just in a state of shock.
Yeah.
And you kind of see it when he doesn't know what to do. It's almost like he can't believe it's really happening.
Yeah.
Like it's a bad nightmare, and he's going to wake up, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then he thinks, oh, I'm going to run out the door. But by the time he thinks about that, they've already down the street.
Yeah, it's too late. And it's one of those where
What's
you're
he
just
gonna
kind
do?
of, what are you going to do anyway?
Yeah.
It's just like, but like, there's nothing. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that.
And running down that hill in Hush Puppies, man, I'll never forget that. That was really hard to do. Hush Puppies, they don't have brakes.
You guys have to do a lot of takes of that
Yes,
run.
A lot of takes. Good thing I was 21 and in good shape.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Okay, so Boulevard Nights comes out,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's October, right?
Yeah.
And then in November, okay, I get cast in a film that's going to be shot in Spain. So I get like a supporting role in this movie directed by Richard Lester, who had directed a couple of Beatle movies, and I was a big Beatle fan, right? So the next thing you know, I'm off on my first major airplane flight since I think I flew once when I was a kid, very young, don't remember. My very first flight, I'm flying to Spain to go work for another 10 weeks to do this film with Sean Connery and all these movie stars, including that man, Hector Elizondo, that I told you about, who was the star of Poppy.
Uh-huh.
So we were reunited
Nice.
on this film called Cuba. And I think this is where the, rumor started that I was Cuban. Because while I went over there and worked for 10 weeks and did that film, Cuba. I came back home, and I was home for a few months. And then in April of 79, I got on a plane and went to Mexico for another 10 weeks to make this movie with Telly Savalas called The Border.
Okay.
And while I was in Mexico, I did a phone interview with a writer who was writing an article for Lowrider magazine before it was corporate, when it was back to being the old school style of you pick it up in the mom and pop stores and all that.
Yeah.
And he did this long ass interview with me, and I sent him pictures from all the stills from the different movies I'd been in at that point, which was 3 movies basically. And one of them was from that movie Cuba. And I think in people's minds, they made this connection. Oh,
right.
He's Cuban.
Cuban actor, yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe the curly hair that made them think I was Puerto Rican. So after that, everybody just assumed I was Puerto Rican and Cuban. I could never convince anybody that I was actually Mexican American. And then my father was born in Chihuahua. So yeah, I think that's where that was all, that whole thing started with me not being Mexican or whatever.
Man, so your second movie you did, like now you're up there with Sean Connery and all, like that was just
it was amazing just to be propelled.
And then even being like shooting in Spain now, like all right, fly out.
Yeah, and with all these actors that I'd watched on the Twilight Zone as a kid, and seen their movies on television. Yeah. I mean, we didn't have the internet back then, but if I'd been able to do the research, I would have known more of their history. And I would have asked them so many questions about all these people they worked with that I admired and all these movies they made. I didn't know. God, if I could go back. We had so many experiences. I lived in Spain for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
I'd never even been out of the country. It was like going to Mars. I was on a foreign, on another planet.
Yeah.
Everything was so different. Everything was so old and cobblestone streets.
Right.
These cathedrals are 200, 300, 400 years old. I was not 500, 600, 700 years old. It was amazing. So it was just an incredible experience. And then I came back and I, from Mexico, having made those first 3 films. And then eventually the film started coming out, and, Cuba came out at Christmas time of 79. That was the last movie I had out in that year. And it played in theaters, but it didn't do very well. I liked it. I thought it was a quirky little film.
Yeah.
All these movies that I made over the course of my career, strangely enough, many of them found their audience and became what are known as cult movies.
Right.
So for the particular audience that likes this film, these films are very, very popular. And that film, Cuba, is one of those films. A lot of people like it. It's a quirky movie, but it's one of my favorites. I like it. It's not a great film. Maybe, I know what its faults are.
Yeah.
But still, it's so enjoyable to watch it. It's so interesting, the style of it, and all these actors that are in it. I do enjoy that movie a great deal. I really do. And the music by... is really, really good. Excellent music in that film, Cuba. The music actually never was released on a soundtrack back then in 1979. It didn't get released until 2000 something.
Wow.
Yes. Damn. Yes.
And that's like the original score soundtrack?
The original soundtrack, to that movie, because it was really, really excellent. Patrick Williams. He's the composer, brilliant composer. But his soundtrack for that film, his compositions in that film were just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
And then you did, you were telling me that you also did like a Western, right? With Willie Nelson.
Yes, in
Barbarossa.
1980, Willie Nelson and Gary Busey and myself and Gilbert Roland. Gilbert Roland was another actor. This time he was a Mexican-American actor who I'd grown up watching as a kid on television. Because, you see this one guy who's Mexican-American, he's in all these movies with all these big stars.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, who is this guy? My mother loved him. She was a huge fan of Gilbert Roland. They were both from El Paso, Texas. And so when I made that movie, I brought my mom out to Texas, and had her on the set, and she met Gilbert Roland, and she drove with us in the morning to the movie set, and he opened the car door for her, and
Nice, yeah.
like a gentleman, he was old school. That guy.
Yeah.
He was already in his late 70s, early 80s. That was his last movie.
Gotcha.
He didn't die for another 13 years after that, but he didn't make another movie.
Right.
That was and he was excellent in the movie in Barbarossa. Now it's on Blu-ray and it looks beautiful. Another cult western.
Yeah.
Cult movie in the western genre, that one.
Yeah, man, I got to check that out.
Really good movie. Really like it. I'm very proud to be in that movie. All these movies that I was in, people in the Chicano community kind of really don't know too much about them. All they ever focused on was Boulevard Nights and American Me.
Yeah.
And I kind of always wondered, like in my mind, I would think, how did they think I made a living if I only made 2 movies?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, how much money do they think I actually got paid?
Right.
That I was able to survive for all these years on 2 movies?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think now maybe the younger generation is much more open-minded.
Yeah.
Because they were raised, they're the digital generation. They're raised on computers and iPhones, and so they're used to access to all this stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever they want to see is at their fingertips.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like before.
And like you were saying, how now you can look up the history on people. So
so
if someone can see American Me and like, oh, I really like this actor. What else was he in?
Just click on his name and then click on the
IMDb,
movies.
Yeah,
and
let's find all these movies.
So now people are starting to catch up.
Yeah, yeah.
But for a while they would always ask me, "Are you going to make another movie? Are you going to make another movie? Are you going to make another movie?" In my mind, I'm thinking to myself,
I'm working.
You haven't even seen half the movies I've been in.
Yeah.
So why don't we just wait for you to catch up?
Yeah.
And then I'll make another movie.
Yeah.
I've already made so many movies and you've never even seen them. What's the point of my making more movies for if you're not going to watch them?
Yeah.
Because I don't make any more gangster movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And basically I'm too old to make gangster movies, really. And I'd only want to do another film in that genre if there was something that was really, really excellent.
Yeah.
Maybe it had some kind of a spiritual core to it.
Right, right.
That would want to make me be involved with it. The last one I did was Kill Capone. And I did it because I liked the message of it.
Okay.
Have you seen Kill Capone?
I haven't. No.
It's from 2012.
All right.
And it's more about today, gangsterism today.
Gotcha.
So it's changed a lot over the years.
I mean, do you find that you mostly get, like, if a movie does come your way, is it mostly like in that genre, like pretty like? Are
No, not at all.
Right,
I did
good.
more movies that were different than gangster movies than I did gangster movies. Just the Chicano community doesn't bother to look at them.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I only played gangsters just those 3 times,
Yeah.
and one time in a television movie with Keanu Reeves, which went on to become a cult television movie.
Yeah.
As strange as that sounds.
Yeah.
Only because I was in this scene with Keanu Reeves and Evan Moran from Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
All these young, actors who were nobody at the time. Keanu Reeves was maybe 20 or
Damn, yeah.
19, 20, 21 maybe. I don't remember. He was so young. He wasn't famous.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was in this one scene in this television movie, but it was a long scene. And the whole scene focuses on my character. My character is in control of this scene. I've literally got these 5 white young actors sitting in a car, and I've got them surrounded, and they are completely in my control. And people have caught, once the internet, happened, and that scene was put on YouTube, everybody thought it was outtakes from Boulevard Nights. I'm like, what would Keanu Reeves be doing in Boulevard Nights? People, what have you been smoking?
What's the name of this movie?
Brotherhood of Justice.
Brotherhood of Justice. Right,
and it's not outtakes, because somebody put that on there on YouTube.
Yeah.
Outtakes from Boulevard Nights. I guess they want to get attention.
Oh, they actually put that as the title
Yes,
of
as
it.
the title.
Oh, interesting.
And so, of course, people believe it, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, I still looked pretty young.
Yeah.
Even though it was maybe 7 years or 8 years later when we shot that. But I still did look pretty young. But anyway, so a lot of the films that I did do have become kind of popular in the cinematic afterlife.
Right, right.
But the computer has allowed people to catch up.
Yeah.
And, social media, now you get messages from, I realize these films are popular all over the world, not just in the United States,
Yeah.
in Europe, in Asia, all over. People love their movies.
Yeah.
People love their movies.
Yeah.
I mean, American Me is popular with Armenians. So go figure. You know,
Yeah.
one time I went to this club in L.A. and there was a bunch of these young Armenian cats there, and they recognized me, and they're like, "Oh my God, when we first came to this country, our American friends, they gave us the videotape of American Me and said, 'You want to learn about American culture? Watch this.'"
Wow.
They said, "Boy, we got a quick lesson."
Yeah.
But they said that they loved that movie, just loved it.
Yeah.
And I get Facebook messages from people all over the world that talk about these movies. So it's very gratifying that people enjoy them. And I understand from people that watch American Me, many of them, the detractors who, say that, we changed a lot of the true story. And we did.
Yeah.
Changed many, many things.
Yeah.
Many of the things that we show happening. That's why we don't use the real characters' names, because it's not really their story.
Yeah.
It was based on their story. But it was creative license,
Yeah.
And I can understand them being pissed off because maybe people in that lifestyle would never do certain things like that.
Yeah.
Or those things didn't really happen.
Right.
But it was created, to make a point about what you are willing to do, how far you're willing to go when you pledge allegiance to certain groups.
Yeah.
And the price that you pay for doing that. So it could be any organization. You know?
Yeah.
Any at all. It could be the police department, whatever that organization is. But are you going to let that come before your family,
Right.
before your flesh and blood? Are you going to let that come before the most important things? What are your priorities in life? But anyway, American Me was 13 years, shot 13 years after Boulevard Nights. So let's get back to what we were talking about with people not watching my movies.
Yeah.
So nobody sees my movies between Boulevard Nights and American Me. So they haven't seen anything. So suddenly it's 13 years later and they look up on the screen and they say, "That guy looks familiar." But they don't realize that that's Chuco from Boulevard Nights. Because now I'm not 21 like I was when we shot Boulevard Nights.
Yeah.
Now I'm 34.
Right.
And they made me look a little bit older because the guy that played Puppet at the time was actually 30.
Okay.
And he was playing younger than me.
Yeah.
So they made him look younger, and they shaved my head back a little bit and made me look older. So eventually people made the connection. There's like, wow, that's Chuco. Look at how different he looks. He's all older now and everything. It's kind of a shock for some people, but many people never even made the connection that it was the two people.
Really? Wow.
When it first came out, it was a little while afterwards before people started realizing, hey, remember that movie? Because Boulevard Nights had already been out on videotape at that point.
Yeah.
When American Me came out, it had been out for 5 years. It came out in 1988. 10 years after we filmed it, it was released on video. So all the videotapes of Boulevard Nights prior to 1988 were all home recordings made from people's homes off cable television.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that's how Boulevard Nights became so popular in the hood. People passing around those homemade recordings from cable television.
Dang. And that definitely must have made it more of a must-see. Like when it's
spread like
kind
wildfire.
of exclusive like that. Like, you got to pass it on to people.
You got to pass. That's how it. It was completely, grassroots.
Yeah.
As they say.
Damn.
American Me was a intense experience making that film.
Yeah.
It was the minute I read the script, what happened was Edward James almost gave me the script. It said, read it and then tell me what part you would like to play. So I read the script and I'm thinking, God, there's all these parts in this movie, but no one's going to remember anybody in this film except for JD and Santana and Mundo, the three main guys.
Yeah.
That's all they're going to remember because there's so many people coming and going throughout this film, and it's a long movie.
Yeah.
But there was this one part, this character who did something that was so remarkable, it made you stop and go, oh, no way. This guy's going to kill his own brother to show his allegiance to this group? He's going to kill his own brother?
Yeah.
That's the part that I thought, you know what? I think I could bring something to that. I think I could play that part. I know not every actor could do a role like that, but those were the kinds of parts that I kind of specialized in.
Yeah.
Parts of characters that were very conflicted.
Yeah.
They were torn inside. Like Chuco had one foot in the VGV and one foot in his family.
Yeah.
The Avila family.
Yeah.
And he was trying to straddle those two, those two positions, and he couldn't do it. It broke him in two, like a wishbone. And here Puppet was having to choose between his allegiance to this group or his own flesh and blood, saving his family. In order to save the other members of his family, he had to sacrifice the one.
Yeah.
And that's what it came down to for that character. But for an actor to play a role of a person who's put in that position, that's a great part. Every actor longs to get a part like that because that's very challenging.
Yeah.
You can't just phone that one in. You have to really, really do the work. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
It's going to be painful. It's going to hurt. It is literally going to take something from you, and it's never going to bring that thing back. After you've given it to play this role, you're never going to get that piece back. That piece can be gone, and you know it when you're doing it. I did not look forward to doing that scene, killing my brother. It was the last scene I think I shot in the film in the 10-week shooting schedule. We put it off to the very end because at the very end I will have had the whole experience of playing Puppet, being Puppet. All the scenes we did would have been behind me and inside my mind. And I remember that day came and it was overcast, cloudy, gray. I went into the makeup trailer and they were playing, hip hop music, Lenny Kravitz. And I was like, can we turn the radio off, please? I am not in the mood for this shit.
Yeah.
Pardon my French. And right away, everybody was like, oh, okay.
It's that day.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't even want to come out of the dressing room. I didn't want to do it. In fact, I even begged Edward James Olmos, can we please do this another day? I am not in the mood for this today. I didn't feel like I was going to have enough an emotion in me. I wanted to be able to feel it. Anyway, he said, Danny, we can't. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars riding on this.
Yeah.
This is the day it's been scheduled to shoot, and this is the day it's going to film. That's it. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, he kept saying. So we did it. We did it over and over and over again until he was satisfied with it, with all the different angles. And then frustratingly enough, after we had shot the film and the film scheduled shooting that was all over with, it came time months later for us to go back and put our voices in to certain parts where we couldn't be heard properly, what they call looping.
Yeah, the ADR and all that.
Yeah. ADR, yeah. Automatic Dialogue Replacement, ADR. Yeah. So come to find out that whole scene, okay, with me killing my brother, you hear this sound in the background.
Oh, no.
The motor of the camera could be heard during the entire scene. And the emotion that I expressed vocally was so powerful in that scene. Yeah. And here Eddie's telling me, sorry, bro, you got to recreate the whole thing in a studio with a microphone watching the film on the screen. I'm like, oh, my God. There's no way I'm going to be able to recreate that. Let me listen to it a couple times.
Yeah.
I did the best I could, but trust me, what I did was pale compared to the real dialogue recorded on set. And I kept thinking, wow, this is so sad. No one's going to really appreciate this scene now. But I was wrong, The audience didn't know. They hadn't heard the original dialogue.
Yeah.
All they had to go by was what was given to them there.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like a silent movie. The visual that you're watching was what was shot on set.
Yeah.
But the sound was created separately.
Yeah.
And they were melded together.
Right. Man.
And people were very moved by that scene. I remember from day one, the first time I saw it with an audience, people actually turned their heads away because they did not believe that he was going to do that. And then when he went and started doing it, they didn't want to see it.
Yeah.
They did not want to go there. They just didn't want to go there. These are your first audiences, okay? The very first audiences to witness American Me back in 1992.
Yeah.
When they had previews for it.
Yeah, man, it's a rough moment for sure. I would have never thought that was a redone ADR moment. Like, I think it's conveyed so beautifully.
Well, you know what I didn't realize is that because of the visual, because you're looking at him, you're looking at his eyes, you're looking at his face, you're looking at the way that he's feeling.
Yeah.
You're so wrapped up in that you don't even realize that little puppet is telling me a story of how his new bride asked him if the reason they call him little puppet is because he has small genitalia.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers the words coming out of his mouth because they're just looking at me and that camera's panning down to my hands and seeing the rope gliding through my fingers.
Yeah.
They're thinking in their minds, no, he's not. No, he's not.
Yeah.
There's no way. He's not. And then they see that he does it. So their attention, I didn't realize how, they weren't going to be focused on the sound.
Yeah.
That's the last thing on their mind.
Yeah.
So the magic of movie making,
Yeah.
And in those prison scenes, that riot scene in the prison, that's a mixture of the actual prison, Folsom, Chino prison, which is a whole different prison, and a Hollywood studio where slides of the walls of the prison, giant slides were created and light projected through them, so that we could stand in front of those slides, almost like a green screen today.
Okay.
As though we were in the prison, and all three of those elements were mixed together. And now when I watch it, even I can't tell. Yeah. Is that the actual prison? Is that the studio? Which one is that?
Yeah, that's seamless, man.
It is. You just see it, and plus you're wrapped up in the story. You're not paying attention to that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing's too obvious where it draws you out of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, and that's absolutely right. It's like if the audience is noticing these little things, then the movie just isn't there.
But can I say something to you before? Because I really want to say this. Yeah. I want this to be recorded. After Boulevard Nights came out, and all the years since, and then American Me, and all the years since, people have had a chance to see those performances literally hundreds of times. They have watched me play those roles so many times. It's embedded in their psyche, okay? And I just cannot express the gratitude that I have for all the love that people have given me just for those two roles alone.
Right.
It's just unbelievable. When people like what you do, or when you've been able to touch them or move them or make them feel something through your work as an actor, people have a great deal of respect for that. They really do. They really, really, really respect that a lot. And it's caused them to be so kind, generous. They offer me their love, a total stranger. When they meet me, they have no idea. They've never met me before.
Yeah.
But you just see their faces light up. They're so, so happy. They want to share stories with me about their childhood, how they first came to be introduced to these movies, about the people in their families that introduced them to the movies, or how they first came to see the films. Very personal stories sometimes that they wouldn't tell other people. People in their lives that have passed on, who introduced them to those movies, that they will always remember when they see the movies. It reminds them of their loved ones. Just so many stories, incredible stories. With this one girl hit me up on Facebook one time. She was in an accident and she went into a coma. And I forget how long she was in the coma for, maybe a couple of weeks. Anyway, when she came out of the coma, okay, after this horrific experience that she went through, all she could remember was that I came to her as Chuco from Boulevard Nights and kissed her on the forehead. And she had this vivid memory of that happening when she awoke from her coma. And she sent me this long message, like maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs, explaining the whole story to me. And I remember reading it, and I just started crying. I was like, wow, that just really blew me away. I'd heard a lot of stories up to that point, but never anything like that. So it's amazing how these movies do seep into people's psyches and how much impact they have on people and how much meaning they have in people's lives. And I just want everyone to know that I really understand that. I get it. I get it. I appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. I really now, as an older person, really have come to appreciate and feel a great deal of gratitude for all of that love and all that good feeling that people have put on me. I'm just a person like them. You know, I don't think of myself as any better or worse than anybody else. I don't think I'm all that, but I do appreciate all the love that people in and even outside of my community have given me for these performances that I gave. There's nothing more gratifying to an actor to know that their work has had that kind of effect on people. I mean, for me, that is the Academy Award. I mean, once you've been able to do that, that little statue isn't going to mean anything more. It couldn't.
Yeah.
To me, everybody has given me that award, basically. They've already given it to me. So I feel very honored to be on the receiving end of that. And also, I think there's a great responsibility that I feel I have, you know, to be humble and to be kind and to be grateful and thankful to them for all of that love.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just wanted that to go on record.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, very well said. Yeah, it's hard for me to like come out from that one.
Well, you know, after American Me, I guess we should move on a little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of felt after American Me came out, I'll be honest, I was, you know, it's my fault. I had great expectations that my performance would be noticed. I was so naive at the time. I was 34 years old, but still rather naive. I came to understand that a lot of critics are not Latinos, you know, at the time. They're mostly people from other cultures and mostly white Anglo-Saxon people. Yeah. And they didn't understand the lifestyle. Yeah. And they really, no offense intended, weren't qualified to write a review of American Me. Just to be perfectly frank, they didn't get it. Yeah. American Me is written in code, and they couldn't decipher the code. Yeah. They just didn't get it. They reviewed it in their sort of weak kind of way. And but even from a professional standpoint, I was never mentioned in any of the reviews because I could tell from their perspective that, you know, they must have just got me off the streets of East LA. You know, no craft involved, no acting school, no years of studying. And, you know, none of that ever came into their minds that any of these actors, you know, did that. I think they looked at us in a very discriminatory way. I really do believe that. Unconsciously. These reviews were completely, that's how I would classify them as unconscious reviews. There was no consciousness in them. One after another. Time, Newsweek, New York Times, LA Times. Yeah, so it was almost, to be honest with you, it was almost like I had never done the film. Like it never happened. Damn. And it really kind of like, I shouldn't have let it do this to me, but I did let it disappoint me terribly. And yeah, I continued to work, trying to find roles here and there. But at that point, I really kind of checked out. I really just wanted to get out of the industry. And I think I was kind of burned out at that point, feeling very negative about auditioning. And I began to see auditioning as going to these offices. After all the work I'd done, I still had to go in these offices and jump through hoops like a trained monkey. Yeah. And you know, or a dog and pony show, I guess they call it, you know. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. I felt like, you know what, I earned my right to be here.
Yeah.
And not that I felt I shouldn't audition for something good that's coming along, but a lot of this material was just crap. I would read these sides that they send you, you know, pieces of the script, and think, God, this is just so poorly written. This is just such garbage. And this is what I have to do to make a living. I kind of didn't want to do it anymore. So American Me was the beginning of my pulling back, I guess you could say. My receding back.
Yeah.
Away from the film industry and from being an actor actively seeking work in the film industry.
Right.
I really just started to figure, what else can I do here to make a living, you know?
Yeah, man, that's so rough, especially after coming off such a great role and where you brought a lot to the table, and then to, man,
it was honestly, it was not recognized at all, except by the people again, by my community. Oh, they loved it.
Yeah.
In fact, out of all those characters, just like I thought when I read the script, I was the one person that they remembered from the screenplay.
Right, right.
They started quoting that line. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Everybody was saying, don't look at me. And even I was curious, like, why are they all saying that line? Don't look at me.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why that became such a thing. But it was because that scene was so memorable to them.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think psychologically, it was bringing humor to that saying of "don't look at me," like using it to talk to your kids, or to say jokingly to your friends or to your husband or to your wife. You know, don't look at me.
Yeah,
was a way of dealing with the pain.
Yeah,
they didn't want to continue to focus on the pain of that scene.
Yeah,
of the horror of it.
Yeah,
and they did something very healing. They brought humor to it, and now it's used in memes as a funny thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is wonderful. I want everybody to know that. Do it more, do it more, do it more. Love it. It's become so popular. When that baseball player got into that fight a few years ago, I forget what his name was, and he told the guy, "Don't look at me," and then boom, it was all over over social media again. Yeah. Yes, that was just a few years back. I can't remember his name now, but.
Do you? So this is something that kind of came up when my friend and I originally recorded an episode about American Me. Is how I guess I'll start with how do you feel about push, if there even really is one, for like diversity in film right now? And do you think if maybe if this came out later, would things have been different? And I guess I'm asking a bunch of questions. Like I'm curious why even after this movie and being made for Universal, and how come we don't see more directors like Edward James Olmos bringing some more of these like stories, or even like a Gregory Nava with like Mi Familia and like more of that? Like, do you have any like insight or thoughts on that side of it? Because I feel like there's these great movies, and especially now when it seems like there's a little more of an open mind in the industry to bring in more people, hear more stories. I feel like there's still a big chunk missing, especially when it comes to Chicano stories.
We don't own it.
Right.
It's a big system and we don't own it. But you know something? This is your podcast, right?
Yeah.
You didn't audition for this.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gave you this opportunity to have your own podcast. This is your creation.
Right.
You own this. This is yours. You control it.
Mm-hmm.
You decide who comes on your show. You decide the content of your show. You edit it. You create it.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. Pool our resources, come together, stop pulling all the crabs down from the top of the crab barrel.
Mm-hmm.
Let's push each other up and out. Let's create our own product. We don't need all these, Warner Brothers and Universal. We don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
Those days are gone. They're dead. Let's celebrate our independence.
Yeah.
The digital freedom the freedom that the digital age has allowed us. Let's create our own product. Let's stop complaining about why doesn't Universal make more of this or Warner Brothers make more of that, or, you know, why this, why that. No, there's no more of that now. It's us. It's all up to us. Just like you and your podcast, make your own movies. There's a couple of Latino gentlemen that used to work for Tyler Perry. And I guess Tyler used to shoot a lot of his movies out in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, they bought these old studios now, these two guys, and they're going to open up a Latino studio out in Atlanta, Georgia. The first one of its kind.
Yeah.
Major Latino studio. I guess they found the financing or whatever, and they're going to make Latino projects. That's the whole idea. That's when things are going to change.
Yeah.
When we take matters into our own hands and we decide for ourselves where our future is going to be. We're not asking anybody else. That's why I got to the point where I don't want to audition for you no more.
Yeah.
I consider my talent to be, this is my treasure. I own this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to share it with you anymore for money. Just because you have money, you think you can buy me. I really did feel like a whore. That's what I felt like.
Wow.
I felt like a little bitch. You know, they offer me this much money, and there I am, like a prostitute, getting into bed with them, doing their whatever needs to be done. You know, I don't mean literally. You know, thank God I never had to put my knee pads on to get any part in this industry. But I got to tell you, you know, there are plenty of people that do.
Right.
The casting couch is very much alive and well. But getting back to what you were saying, it's a matter of self-empowerment. It really is. Let's empower ourselves to move forward. When I look at YouTube now and see all these Chicanos on YouTube, Chicanos living in Japan with a YouTube channel, Chicanos living in Japan. What a fascinating subject.
Right, right.
And I go look at it, beautifully done, professionally done, beautiful graphics, beautiful editing, top-notch, 100% professional looking. More power to you. Get monetized.
Yeah.
You know, go for it. Get it. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But if you look on YouTube, that's all I watch now. I don't even watch TV anymore. YouTube that's my go-to place to watch all these, you know, great Latinos and what they're doing and how professional everything looks and sounds. And I mean, you know, back when we were making Boulevard Nights and even American Me, we didn't, you know, you had computers when we made American Me, but they were just really early models, you know, and people weren't, it wasn't like the thing.
Yeah.
Like it is now.
Yeah. Like everyone's got one. Everyone has the access to editing. Like,
but honestly, Rudy, I really believe that that's what's going to change our realities. We're going to change it. We're going to stop begging for stuff and asking for stuff and creating ourselves. We don't need them anymore. And I think they know it.
Right, right.
I think this is something that is known to the people in the industry. They know we don't need them anymore. So we're going to see big changes, I think, coming up in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Man, I agree with everything you're saying wholeheartedly, and I think you delivering this message is a really great thing and is going to inspire a lot of people. Because I feel the same way. It's like there's so much accessibility for us to do these things on our own, and then it's just kind of hard to like get the push and the people to do these things you're saying, just by ourselves. You don't need anybody. I just think
otherwise you get stuck. You get stuck in that. Oh my God, the white man keeps us down.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, the system this and the system that, and okay, I'm not saying that's not true, but why use that as an excuse not to succeed? There's no reason. As long as that keeps being your excuse, then you will never see success.
Right. Yeah.
Success is in your hands to create.
Yeah.
You create it for yourself. See, let's go back to what I said about American Me. I was waiting for them to validate me.
Right.
Now I look back and think, I don't need them to validate me. I should just go forward myself and be an independent actor, write my own projects, do them independently if I have to, but at least I would be empowering myself.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, I was lucky. Not a lot of actors have the relationship with their audience that I have. You know, like white actors, let's say, you know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant actors, let's call them, Anglo actors, right? They don't have a culture per se.
Right.
They don't identify with any particular culture except American, which is not really a culture if you stop and think about it. It could be anything American.
Yeah.
You know, it's whatever you are, right?
Yeah.
I'm American, you're American. But when you have a culture, that sense of identity, right? That's a game changer right there. So I have a relationship with the people in my community. And I feel I have a responsibility because I represent them. I'm like an ambassador for them. That's how they look at me. Mm-hmm. And that's what they expect me to be. Like, hey, with your talent that God gave you, help us. We should all do something for each other. And that's what I'm doing for us. And in the larger sense, for humanity at large, because I belong to the human race. That's the big race I belong to. Mm-hmm. And I want to be the best human that I can be. But I do feel that a sense of responsibility in terms of representing my culture. Right. I don't mind playing gangsters as long as they're well written.
Yeah.
As long as they're honest.
Right.
There's something beautiful and poetic in the role of puppet in American Me. You don't have to judge it and say, oh, he's a gangster. Mm-hmm. I don't judge my characters. I want everyone to know that. I do not judge them. Mm-hmm. I played plenty of people that have made lots of mistakes. I have made lots of mistakes in this life. I came here to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've made plenty, a lifetime's worth of mistakes. But do I regret them? No. Because how else could I be the person that I am today without having gone through that? Without having effed up like that? There's no other way I could be who I am today. So, I'm looking forward to the future. I really have I'm going to be 63. And I'm feeling very young, very enthusiastic, very hopeful and very positive, but I'm not expecting anybody to give me a handout anymore. I'm not expecting their validation anymore. I have moved past that. And I hope that we as a community can do the same thing. I really do. Because I think our success lies in our ability to take matters into our own hands and to decide what our future is going to be for ourselves.
Yeah. Wise words, man. Thank you.
I will now get off my pulpit and stop preaching.
Yeah. Let's, before we start, winding it down, what do you have, coming on up next? What are you doing, these days? I know you mentioned that you are rehearsing for a play.
Yes, currently I'm involved in a tour, a national tour of a Chicano play called The Last Angry Brown Hat, written by Alfredo Ramos, who is a writer-director. I think he thinks of himself first as a writer, but he's an excellent director. Alfredo directed me in Kill Capone.
Okay.
He also directed Road Dogs, which is another film I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
Excellent Chicano film from 2000. It was an HBO film. He also directed me in Suckers, a little independent production we made back in the day that he spent his own money on. And he's written this play called The Last Angry Brown Hat that I did back in the 90s. And now, even though I'm actually too old to be in this play, but it's theater, so people are 50 feet away.
Yeah.
Hopefully they won't notice. And I dye my mustache. But I'm in this play. It's about 4 Chicanos who were in the Brown Beret back in the early 70s. And the play takes place in 1994. And one of their friends has passed away. And after the funeral, 4 of these guys, all gather in this garage where they used to meet and have their meetings. Mm-hmm. And they haven't seen each other in 20 years. So that's what the play is about. It takes place in this garage. And it's a really good play. And I'm involved in a tour. So we did Chicago last November. And we're off for a few months. And then in April, we start again. We're going to be in LA in April, I think, April and May.
Okay.
And then we're going to go on to Texas and maybe New York and some other places.
Wow, nice.
And then I've also involved in a couple of projects. I've produced a new documentary, really good documentary. It's called Nelly Queen, The Life and Times of Jose Sarria. And we're just finishing it up. We are going to finish it up this year, I think, and get it out there on Netflix or one of those platforms.
Oh, awesome.
Beautiful documentary about the first Latino. Well, he's the first man to run for public office, the first gay man to run for public office. He happened to be Latino. He was of Nicaraguan descent. And it's all about his life, basically. He's an unsung hero, somebody that people do not know anything about. But without this guy, gay people today would not have the rights that they have, would not have the freedoms that they have without this man who they know virtually nothing about.
Yeah, wow.
So we're going to tell the story of this unsung hero, kind of.
And you've been, I feel like I've heard about that. You've been working on that one for quite a few years.
I've been on that
right?
for, this is our 6th year.
Okay.
Yeah, these documentaries do tend to take some time, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to leave it as part of my legacy. This film's going to be in universities and schools all across the country, and it's going to be there for LGBTQ students to, you know, to reference, or to anybody that's interested in the history, California history, because this story takes place in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then I'm also involved in a project about these 8 Chicanos from World War II that lived in Silvis, Illinois, in the Midwest. And they all lived in a 2-block radius of each other. They grew up together. And they went off to fight, mostly in World War II, and a couple of them in the Korean War, and none of them came back. And the street that they lived on was renamed from 2nd Avenue to Hero Street. And that's what the project is called, is Hero Street.
Wow.
So I'm working on that also. We've been on that since the 90s. But there's a lot of heat around that project right now, so we're hoping that that comes to fruition and we can get that script finished and shoot this film as maybe a 6 or 7 part film for Netflix or one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
So yeah, I still have a lot of things, you know, I want to do before I check off the bucket list, so to speak.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. It's I'm glad to see that you're bringing these stories to light. Man.
Yeah,
That's
I want to
great
work
stuff.
with a
Like,
lot of young people and pass on some of my wisdom and stuff that
Yeah.
I've learned over the years before I kick the bucket. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather just not take it with me. If I could leave it with somebody, it'd be nice so that they could use it
Yeah.
and move forward with it, you know, because I have learned quite a lot over the years.
I guess like the last couple questions I have here to just kind of know a little more about what else you're into. You mentioned to me when we initially talked that you still keep up on movies and everything that's going on. I'm just curious, like, what are some of your favorite films you've seen as of recent?
I'm a
what are you
real
into?
movie geek.
Yeah.
I really am. Well, I thought Parasite was brilliant.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the ending.
Okay.
For some reason, it surprises them.
Yeah.
They think it's like 2 movies. But for me, that movie is not about reality per se.
Yeah.
It's not a realistic, quote unquote, movie. To me, I see it as more like opera.
Yeah.
It's bigger than life.
Yeah.
And the ending, there's no other place it could have gone
Yeah.
or where it went.
Yeah.
There's no other place it could have gone. I was just fascinated by the craftsmanship of it, just the sheer brilliance of it, the acting, the directing, the writing, the cinematography. Everything was top notch.
Yeah.
Love that movie. Seen a lot of good movies this season. I enjoyed, I'm not a huge Tarantino fan, but I did
Okay.
enjoy Once Upon a Time
Yeah.
in Hollywood. Also liked Scene's Marriage Story.
Yeah. I watched that twice this week, actually.
Loved it for the details.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard one.
The
It was
details
rough.
of how 2 people something can slip through their fingers, basically.
Yeah.
No person is to blame. There's
Yeah.
no good guy. There's no bad guy.
Yeah.
They both contributed
Yeah.
to the disintegration of this marriage, of this relationship.
Yeah.
But at the end, you realize that they love each other so much, and your mind just can't fathom, how is it not possible for this to have worked out?
Yeah.
And you think about the thousands, the hundreds of thousands, the millions of relationships just like it
Yeah.
all over the world that should have worked out and that probably could have worked out
Yeah.
if people had been able to see what they were doing, if they'd had the consciousness. To me, that's what that movie's about, consciousness.
Right.
What else? God, I've seen so many
Yeah.
films.
Did you see Uncut Gems?
I haven't seen Uncut
All right.
Gems.
That's a good one.
That's
very
one- it's
very
been-
stressful.
Yeah, it's been recommended to me.
Yeah.
It's been recommended to me.
Yeah.
I do need to see that film.
Yeah. Very
But,
very anxious movie.
Yeah, no, I keep up with films. I'm a film geek. I'm a geek.
Yeah.
I'm a collector. I can watch movies all day long.
Yeah.
All day long. TCM,
All right. Yeah.
totally
There you go.
addicted. Addicted.
What are some like classic films that you like? Like
Okay, let me tell you about my classic films.
Okay.
I buy them on Blu-ray.
yeah.
Okay, if I buy a Blu-ray or a DVD, it's because I'm going to watch it
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again. I may only watch it once a year, but I will watch it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I will savor it like a fine wine because I love it so much. I not only watch it, but I'm going to study it. Because the great films have a lot to teach you about filmmaking.
Yeah.
A lot. The things that work, the things that don't work. There's just so many brilliant, brilliant films. Some of them I love because they're hilarious and they're so much fun. And I'll put them on if I want to laugh and have a good time. But, I realize it's my sense of humor, too, because one time I love Mommy Dearest, You can't... People that made Mommy Dearest were trying to make a very serious, sober film.
Yeah.
They had no idea that what they were doing was so over the top that it was actually pure. It's like you can't make a film that brilliant intentionally. It's funny, but in the best kind of way. But I played this film for some people thinking they would laugh like I laughed.
Yeah,
they were horrified.
Yeah.
They thought it was a film about child abuse. And I was just shocked that they didn't get the humor in it,
Right,
or
right.
even the original Frankenstein. The original Frankenstein is really funny. James Whale was a brilliant director.
Yeah. Yeah.
He infused that film with so much humor, but people just don't get it.
Yeah.
I guess for some reason. But I do love my classic films. I really do. And I enjoy watching them. And I study them. And then there's always things, even after owning them for several years, I'll watch them again and see something I never saw before.
Right.
So there's, as you change, the way you see films changes, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There's some films that you appreciate as a child that I still appreciate to this day.
Yeah.
And some films I saw as a kid and I realized, oh, now that I'm an adult, that film
Yeah,
doesn't
not
appeal
really
to me
there.
very much anymore. It's
Yeah.
not really very good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm kind of going through that where I've been trying to make time to go and watch movies I haven't seen in a long time. And it's good because, now every time it's like I'll watch it when I'm 12 or whatever. I'll watch it when I'm
Yes.
20. Like now I'm 30. It's like, all right. And, your perspective as you get older and have experiences, your perspective on what resonates with you with certain movies changes.
I'll
And
give you an
that's the beauty of it, man.
interesting story. When I was a kid, I remember seeing this movie, a black and white movie on television. And all I remember from the movie is a scene where the silhouette of a person's head wearing like a band around their head with a feather attached to it. There was a feather. Maybe it was a hat, but there was a feather. The silhouette of that projected on the wall was all I remembered. And I grew up, and this is like 30, 40 years later, and I wanted to find that movie. It just bugged me, like, what was that movie? And one day I saw it again on TV and realized what it was. And I ended up buying the Blu-ray and just loving it for remembering it as a child and then seeing it as an adult and still liking it and appreciating it as a well-made film.
Yeah.
And thinking, wow, as a kid, I had pretty good taste in movies.
What movie was it?
I can't remember the name of it now. I remember the name of it now. I think it was called Shadow on the Wall.
Okay.
Shadow on the Wall, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how certain images will just stick with
Stick
you
in-
too.
they stick in your mind.
Just that frame.
And I was obsessed with finding that movie. I just
Yeah.
had to find out. I couldn't get that image out of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shadow on the Wall. Because it was a scene where it was a murder that the child witnessed. She witnessed and she saw the shadow on the wall.
Oh, interesting.
And psychologically, it messed her up.
Yeah.
And it was about her coming into adulthood and having that memory.
Yeah.
And I think it silenced her. She couldn't speak for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to look
Anyway,
that up.
interesting movie.
Yeah. I was going to ask real quick, what are some of the, you've worked with a ton of directors over the years, both in theater and in films. And I guess for anybody listening that's into acting or into directing, what are the best qualities you think in a director, in your opinion?
I love a director that has a vision.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, in his mind, the movie is already finished.
Right.
He sees it very clearly in his mind. And that includes your performance and how your performance fits into the film. Okay, I love that. But I also love it when that's combined with him leaving me a certain kind of space
Yeah.
for me to share my particular contribution to what his vision is, to let me be a part of contributing to that vision and not imposing on me how he thinks I should say the line or play the part. He's hired me because he already knows I'm going to be what he needs for his vision. Yeah. Now let me bring what I need to bring to the table. That's what I like in a director. I also like a director that's thoughtful, very thoughtful. He's put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah.
And a director that listens. So when we're on the set, he listens to me. If I tell him, look, this line, I don't think my character would say this line. This isn't emotionally logical for me, being the person that I am as this person, to say this line. And if the director listens to me and thinks about it, he'll realize, you know what, you're right. Let's make an adjustment here. Let's take the line out, or let's change the line. So in other words, we're working together.
Right.
As opposed to him just being very single-minded. I'm going to do it his way or the highway.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't care for that at all. Yeah. Because then you are like a puppet, you know?
Right.
Just pull my strings and you might as well have Sophia the robot doing the part, you know?
Yeah.
So but I love that, and I love directors that are so enthusiastic about the project. Yeah, where their enthusiasm is infectious.
Right,
all the actors feel it, and all the actors are excited. Edward James Olmos is like that. He was a brilliant director on American Me. He gave me so much love and confidence. That man, I just cannot tell you how much people don't realize my performance is what it is because of him. It's him. He's the one that whispered to me off screen while the camera was rolling, say, God damn me, God damn me.
Oh, really?
He whispered that to me. That wasn't in the script.
Oh, wow. Damn.
And he made me say it. And I did it because I knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And he would watch you behind the camera. You could literally see this man's face, so caught up in watching you in the scene. His face was all scrunched up and like he was living it. Like,
right.
That's a good director, where he is literally puts himself inside of you, acting the role.
Yeah.
And I will always admire him for what he did on that movie. And I don't think he ever gets the credit.
Yeah.
No one ever gives him the credit for directing that film.
Yeah.
It was a huge, huge endeavor that he took upon himself.
Yeah.
In co-writing, co-producing, directing, starring in.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, all my love to you, Eddie. I will always love and admire you, always. Beautiful person. You know, God bless you. Beautiful person.
Well, I think we probably should wrap it up.
I really appreciate you asking the question about directors, because I've worked with so many wonderful directors. Oh my God, I worked with actors that were in silent movies. Not a lot of actors today you can talk to have worked with people that were in silent movies.
Wow.
So I've had a wonderful career, and if it ended right now after this podcast, I've got nothing, no regrets at all. I can say, quite honestly, it's been a great ride. I am one of those few people around that can actually say, I got to live my dreams. I had a dream. It became a reality. Some people, especially in the acting world, they have the dream, but they never, ever get to achieve the reality for one reason or another. Yeah. It's out of their touch. But for me, I was blessed to be able to make my dreams come true. And that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for your time and for letting me, blab on like this.
No, thank you, man. It's very inspiring. I think, people are going to love this. It's amazing. I know I kind of dropped the ball, didn't have too much to say because I'm just kind of mind blown.
Oh, no. I think it's, after I die, right? People will have stuff like this in the archives to go back and reference. Yeah. If they really want to know how you felt about something, that's why I'm trying to do more of this now as I'm getting older. Because I figure, leave it there for the records, man. Leave it there for somebody else to glean something of. If I could go back right now in the archives and have James Dean
Right.
tell me his experience of making Giant Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden. But there is nothing that exists like that because nobody went to him with that. Nobody thought of doing that at the time, see? God, that would have been just great for me to...
that'd be amazing.
So I'm thinking about the person that thinks about me that way.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So that's in closing what I want to say is that it's a beautiful thing that you're doing this. And I think it's going to help a lot of people down the road in ways you can't even imagine right now.
Yeah, definitely, man. Extremely
So thank you
grateful.
for having me as a guest on your show.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. And people can find you.
Oh, my website. If they want to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook. I think it's Facebook /AdamBoy13, ATOMBOY13. And then on Instagram, it's at Big Puppet, one word, Big Puppet. And then I have my own website for, my merchandising and my memorabilia that I autograph and sell. And that's ddlpmerch.com. DDLP, like my initials, Danny De La Paz, ddlpmerch.com.
All right, man. Right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks in a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksinamoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.